So what kind of conversations are you having? How much of your time do you think is spent in conversation, including with yourself? Yeah. Yes. Most people say about 95 to 99% of the time. And conversation is kind of like the water that fish swim in. It's pervasive, it's omnipresent, and we very rarely think about it until we have a really bad conversation, or we can't figure out how to have a really bad conversation or a critical conversation. And just like the water that fish swim in, if our conversations are toxic, they impact our ability to thrive. They impact our well-being. So what kind of conversations are you having? Our brains, our nervous system is wired really for two primary activities in our life. And the first one, which is dominant, is we're wired to keep ourselves safe and alive. And that's the first part of the brain to form. It's back at the base of the brain, often called the reptilian brain. And it's there specifically to keep us alive, to protect us. So anytime we feel threatened, what happens is that goes into overdrive, and a dump of neurochemicals and hormones, neurotransmitters, get dumped into the brain. Things like cortisol, norepinephrine, testosterone. If we're frightened enough, adrenaline. And what those biochemicals do is they give us a lot of energy in our muscles to fight or to flee, but they also inhibit our access to the prefrontal lobe and the neocortex, which is where all our higher order thinking goes on. It's where all our creativity comes from. When you're in this place of protection, you're only thinking about me. So the ability to connect to other people and to think about the whole is also out the window. When we have depreciative conversations, we go to a place of stress and protecting ourselves. Part of the reason that happens is we're not facing a saber-toothed tiger, although the brain treats everything that way. Instead, one of the biggest stressors for us is a fear of not belonging. It's one of our primary needs. And so when we are criticized, when we feel like our ideas are rejected, when we're not included, it causes a stress reaction, and we go to a protect. And you can imagine the kind of conversations that come from that place of protection about me. They tend to be depreciative. When you have conversations worth having, you get a whole different set of neurotransmitters that are released. Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. And when they flood the brain, your neocortex, your prefrontal lobe, completely open, and you have the ability to access all of that creativity, all of your thinking powers, and you have the ability to connect to other people. So when you're in conversations worth having, you're much less concerned about me, and you're more concerned about we. What are we doing together? How are we moving forward? So there's this interplay between our conversations and their impact on our ability to thrive. And there are two simple practices that are at the heart of appreciative inquiry. The first one is generative questions, and we're going to talk about what that is. And the second one is positive framing. And when you put those two together, that inquiry and appreciative framing, you can have conversations worth having. So it's that simple.